My phone buzzed beside my sleeping son's hospital bed. The beeping machines droned on, that terrible rhythm I'd learned to hate. I didn't want to look at it. I knew the notifications never brought good news anymore. But my hand moved anyway and I saw the video. Confetti exploding across a massive ballroom. Champagne towers catching the light. My sister Ava in a sparkling gold gown, spinning while my parents laughed like I'd never seen them laugh before. In the background I saw them, the exact same caterers I'd begged to hire for Liam's fundraiser. The ones my father had said were too expensive just 2 weeks ago. My hand started shaking so badly I dropped the phone onto the linoleum floor. My child was lying unconscious with an M4 in his arm, fighting for his life, and my family was throwing a $500,000 party. I looked at Liam's small face. His breathing was shallow. The monitor beeped. And I made a decision in that moment, a quiet, burning decision that would change everything. My name is Talia Rowan, and I've spent my whole life being the strong one. That's what my family called me anyway. My sister Ava was the golden miracle, the pretty one, the lucky one, the one things just seemed to happen for. My parents orbited around her like she was the sun. But me? I was the rock. The dependable one. The one who didn't need anything because she was too busy holding everyone else together. Growing up was like that. When Ava wanted a car, they bought her one. When she failed her first semester of college, they paid for tutors. When she made bad business decisions with her trust fund, they quietly fixed it. And when I worked 3 jobs to put myself through school, I got a pat on the back and a reminder to be a good example for your sister. I wasn't bitter about it then. I was just tired. But tiredness turns into something else when your child is sick, and your family chooses sparkles over saving him. Liam was 8 years old when the diagnosis came. Leukemia. The word hung in the doctor's office like a curse. The room smelled like cleaning supplies and desperation. The doctor was saying words like aggressive and treatment plan and good prognosis. But all I could hear was the sound of my heart breaking into pieces I'd never put back together. That night I called my parents. I called them because you're supposed to, and because I was terrified and alone and I needed them. My mother cried. My father said they'd be there for everything. They promised. Actual promises made with their actual voices. That's the thing about betrayal. It's not surprising when it comes from strangers. But from your own parents, it cuts so deep you don't even feel the blade going in. The fundraiser was supposed to happen in March. A small charity dinner to help cover Liam's experimental treatments that insurance wouldn't pay for. I spent weeks planning it. I designed the decorations myself, sketched them out in my kitchen at 2 in the morning. Soft lights, subtle colors, elegant and warm. My father said he wanted to handle the money side of things. He said I had enough on my plate. I actually believed him. I actually thought he was helping. 2 weeks before the dinner, he called and said the donors weren't committing like he'd hoped. He said the money wouldn't be enough, so he'd redirected the funds towards something more meaningful for the family. I remember standing in my apartment, phone pressed to my ear, listening to his explanation that made no sense. He kept using words like opportunity and once in a lifetime. I didn't know yet that he meant Ava's birthday party. The hospital became my whole world. The pediatric oncology floor on the 3rd wing, room 347. I memorized every sound, the beep of the monitors, the hum of the 4 pump, the footsteps of night nurses. Other families would visit with flowers and balloons and those awful get-well cards. My phone would light up with messages, but none of them were from my parents. Instead, I'd see photos. My mother is in a wedding dress shopping for a gala. Ava trying on jewelry. My father is talking to event planners. Each photo felt like a knife. One night, my mother sent me a selfie with the caption, "Trying to stay positive. You understand, right?" I didn't respond. I couldn't. My son was getting chemo pumped into his tiny veins, and she wanted me to understand why his birthday party mattered less than her daughter's pretend celebration of being 30 years old. After the party video went live, I couldn't stop watching it. I knew that was unhealthy. I knew I should close my phone and focus on Liam. But instead I scrolled through every post, every tag, every person congratulating Ava on the most incredible night of her life. The decorations, the lights, the backdrop that read Ava Forever in giant gold letters. Those were my designs. I had sketched those exact shapes at 2 in the morning, imagining them bringing hope and light to a fundraiser for sick children. Instead, They were bringing light to a party for a woman who didn't even love her nephew. Then I saw it. A caption from my father's business partner. Charity money well spent on family love. My stomach twisted. Charity money. He was bragging about it. They'd taken money meant to save my son's life and turned it into champagne towers and fireworks. I made it to the hospital parking lot before I broke. The evening was cold, and I stood beside my old Honda Civic, shaking so badly I couldn't get my key in the lock. I called my mother. I shouldn't have, but I did. My voice was steady, which somehow made it worse. I told her what I'd figured out. I told her that I knew about the money. That I knew they'd taken donations meant for Liam and spent them on Ava's party. For a moment there was silence. Then my mother said something I'll never forget. She whispered, "Please don't make a scene, honey. You'll ruin Ava's night." Not "I'm sorry." Not "we made a mistake." But worry that I might embarrass her favorite daughter. I hung up the phone. And standing there in that dark parking lot, I felt something shift inside me. It wasn't anger anymore. It was something colder. Something that felt like purpose. Liam made it 7 more days. On the 8th day, I was holding his hand when the monitor went flat. The nurses rushed in, but I knew. A mother knows. They kept trying for 30 minutes, but his little body had fought as hard as it could. When they stopped, everything went quiet. The machines turned off. The beeping stopped. And all I could hear was the sound of my own breathing, which felt wrong because he had stopped. The hospital gave me a room to grieve in. It was small and beige and terrible. An hour later, my phone buzzed. A text from my father. "So sorry. We're already in Paris for business. We'll call soon." Paris. While his grandson's body was still warm, he was in Paris. I sat on that beige chair, looking at that text, and I felt something crystallize inside me. I wasn't going to scream or cry or beg them to understand. I was going to do something worse. I was going to make sure they remembered this moment for the rest of their lives. I didn't tell anyone my plan. I just started keeping track. Every bank transfer, every email, every catering invoice. I learned how to follow the money, how to screenshot things, how to create files and organize them. My grief became fuel. Other people brought me casseroles. I put them in the freezer. Other people offered platitudes. I smiled and said nothing. What I actually did was download spreadsheets. I contacted the catering company and got a detailed breakdown of charges. Ava's party. $30,000 for food alone. My son's fundraiser had allocated $5,000 for catering. Never used. I built a timeline. I documented everything. No one knew I was doing it. They thought I was falling apart quietly, which I was. But I was also building something underneath that quiet falling apart. I was building a case. 3 months after Liam died, I launched the Liam Rowan Foundation. I didn't do it for revenge. I did it for my son. The website was simple and honest. Photos of Liam. His laugh. His favorite books. His dream of becoming a marine biologist. Then the mission. To help families fighting pediatric cancer get the treatment they needed, regardless of their bank accounts. I posted a video tribute. I didn't yell. I didn't mention my family. I just spoke about my son and what he deserved. That video spread. People shared it. They commented with their own stories of medical debt and family trauma and fighting alone. Donations started coming in. Thousands, then tens of thousands. People wanted to honor a boy they'd never met because his story mattered. Within 3 months, the foundation had raised $200,000. And I had donated every penny to families who needed it more than I needed revenge. But the revenge was coming anyway. I just didn't have to lift a finger. The media picked up the story. First it was local news. Then a morning show called and wanted to interview me. Then a national magazine wanted to do a feature. The foundation became impossible to ignore. My followers grew. Celebrities shared the link. Hospitals started using our program. And all the while, something else was happening online. People were asking questions about Ava's party. Where did the money come from? Who had paid for it? Why did the decorations look so similar to the canceled fundraiser designs? People I'd never met were connecting the dots that my family thought they'd hidden. Whispers became theories. Theories became accusations. And I said absolutely nothing. I didn't post about it. I didn't comment. I didn't feed the fire. I just kept helping kids with cancer while my sister's world quietly began to burn. The whispers were everywhere, but they weren't coming from me. Former guests at Ava's party had started messaging each other. Anonymous Reddit posts appeared asking if anyone knew the truth. Screenshots of catering bills circulated online. The decorations were definitely the same. The timeline was definitely suspicious. Ava started getting messages from people asking if the rumors were true. First, she tried to laugh it off online. She posted, "Haters will twist anything into drama." But that just made people more curious. Then her fashion sponsors started asking questions. A skincare company pulled her endorsement deal. A jewelry brand unfollowed her public account. The internet was doing something I never could have done myself. It was holding her accountable without any help from me. My mother called me on a Wednesday afternoon. It was the first time I'd heard her voice in 5 months. She didn't say hello. She said, "You've embarrassed us. People are saying terrible things about your sister." My voice was very calm when I answered. I said, "I haven't said anything about your sister. I've just been helping children with cancer." There was a pause. Then my father got on the extension. His voice was angry in a way I'd never heard before. He said, "You're jealous of Ava's success. You always have been." And something inside me smiled, because that's when I knew they understood what was happening. They were scared. They thought I'd somehow orchestrated this, and their panic meant they finally grasped what they'd done. I hung up the phone without saying goodbye. And for the first time since Liam died, I felt something close to peace. A local television station called and asked if I'd do an interview about the foundation's work. I said yes. The interview was scheduled for a Tuesday morning. I wore a simple black dress. I brought photos of Liam. When the reporter asked me about the foundation, I spoke honestly about my son and the families I was helping. The questions stayed professional until the very end. Then the reporter said, "I have to ask, is it true your family was involved in a charity fund controversy?" I looked directly into the camera. My eyes filled with tears, but my voice stayed steady. I said, "The truth always finds light." That was all I said. But that one sentence, combined with my face on television, sent everything into overdrive online. Within 12 hours, that clip had been shared 2 million times. People flooded the comments asking what I meant. Some already knew, and some were about to find out. Ava posted a crying video within 24 hours. She claimed people were being unfair, that rumors had spiraled out of control, that everyone was attacking her for something she didn't do. But then screenshots started appearing. Invoices with her signature. Emails between her and the event planner discussing the party budget. Side-by-side photos of her gown and the gown from my fundraiser design sketches. The evidence was overwhelming and brutal. Fashion brands dropped her completely. Magazines canceled scheduled features. Friends who'd been tagging her in photos for years suddenly went quiet. Her follower count dropped by hundreds of thousands. And she was watching it all happen in real time, unable to stop it. The family started turning on each other. My father blamed my mother for carelessly mentioning the money situation at a party where someone recorded the conversation. My mother blamed Ava for being so reckless with social media that people could easily trace the connection. Ava blamed both of them for leaving her to take the fall. Their private arguments got leaked online by a cousin who thought the drama was entertaining enough to share. Suddenly, the family's internal dysfunction was public entertainment. The image they'd carefully constructed, the perfect, successful, loving family, shattered like dropped glass. And the internet watched it happen with the kind of attention usually reserved for reality television. My mother called again 3 weeks later. She was sobbing when I answered. She said they'd made mistakes, that they were sorry, that they wanted to fix things. Her voice cracked as she begged for my forgiveness. I listened to her cry for a long time. Then I said very quietly, "You can't fix what you traded for glitter." She begged me to understand that they'd been under stress, that they'd made poor decisions, that Ava was suffering now and maybe that was enough punishment. I told her I forgave her. I meant it. But I also meant the second thing I said. You'll have to live with it. Then I hung up. And I didn't answer when she called back, or the time after that, or any of the times after that. The Charity Association launched an official investigation into Ava's event finances. They subpoenaed the bank records, the catering documents, everything. And suddenly, the paper trail I'd so carefully documented became crucial evidence. Investigators found that $30,000 of charity donations had been redirected to the party planning. They found that my father's signature was on multiple forms authorizing the transfers. They found everything I'd already known, but now it was official and legal and impossible to deny. Ava's accounts were frozen. My father's business lost major contracts. Clients didn't want to work with someone who'd stolen from charity. My mother had to hire a lawyer. The consequences weren't something I'd created. They were something I'd simply documented while the truth sorted itself out. Exactly 1 year after Liam died, we held a memorial at his favorite park. He'd loved the ocean, and there was a small beach access from the parking area. I released a lantern with his name written on it, and people I'd met through the foundation came to honor him with me. There was an older couple whose grandson had survived cancer thanks to foundation funding. There was a social worker who helped families navigate medical bills. There were strangers who'd simply been moved by Liam's story. The press showed up uninvited, cameras and microphones ready. And instead of dodging them, I turned to face them. I spoke about integrity and love, and what it means to honor someone's memory. I didn't mention my family. I didn't need to. Everyone already knew exactly who I was talking about. The clip went viral again, and the comments were filled with people saying I'd shown them what real strength looked like. I received an envelope one morning with no return address. Inside was a check for $100,000. The note said, "For the kids. You taught me what family really means." It was signed a former friend. I never figured out who sent it, but I knew it meant something, that my sister's behavior had cost her more than her career. It had cost her people she cared about. Those people had seen my choices and decided they preferred the path I was walking. That check funded a new wing of a children's hospital. It had Liam's name on the plaque. Ava made one final attempt to clear her name. She went on a talk show and tried to explain herself. The host played footage side by side. The decorations from my original fundraiser sketches compared to the actual party decorations. The audience gasped. Then they played the interview I'd given, my voice saying the truth always finds light. Ava tried to spin it as a misunderstanding, but the host wasn't interested in her version. He asked direct questions about the money, about why a fundraiser for a dying child had been redirected to a birthday party. Ava fumbled her words. She got emotional, and it became the most watched moment online that month. Her humiliation was complete and very public. A publishing company approached me about writing a book. The title would be, "What Family Taught Me About Love and Loss." My story became something bigger than my pain. It became a beacon for parents who'd experienced betrayal from their own families. It became a map for people learning how to channel grief into purpose. The book deal came with a substantial advance, and I donated most of it to the foundation. Within a week of the book's announcement, donations tripled. Speaking invitations poured in. Universities wanted me to teach seminars about nonprofit work and social impact. Liam's name kept spreading, kept mattering, kept saving other children's lives. The consequences rippled outward. My father's business filed for bankruptcy after clients left in droves. My mother had to sell the family jewelry to pay legal fees. They lost the mansion. Ava moved back in with them, jobless and humiliated, while they tried to figure out how to rebuild. I learned all of this through news articles and social media posts, not from them. My family never contacted me again. But one day, I saw an article about a family shelter receiving an anonymous donation specifically for people starting over. I knew it was them, or maybe I was just hoping it was. Either way, I'd made my donation in their city with a note. For anyone trying to start over the right way. It was the closest thing to forgiveness I could manage. Months later, I received a letter. The envelope had my name written in handwriting I recognized immediately. Inside a single page, my mother had written, "You were always the strong one. We just never saw it. We see it now." I placed the letter under Liam's photograph on my nightstand. I whispered to his picture, "They finally see, baby." And I felt something I hadn't felt since he died. A sense of completion. Not happiness, not exactly. But the feeling that I'd taken my grief and transformed it into something that mattered. That my son's legacy was now bigger than my pain. I stood on a stage at the National Awards ceremony, lights glowing around me, holding a plaque that read, "Humanitarian of the Year." I looked out at the audience and thought of Liam sitting in that hospital bed. I thought of my family choosing glitter over his life. I thought of every child the foundation had helped. And I spoke the words I'd meant to say all along. My son taught me that love, when betrayed, can destroy you, or rebuild you stronger. We choose what we become. The audience stood up. Behind me, the foundation banner glowed with Liam's name shimmering in gold. And somewhere in that applause, I felt my son's hand in mine one last time. The story wasn't about revenge. It was about love. And love, in the end, always wins. The chandelier above the dining room cast golden light across the face of every person sitting at the long mahogany table. I was wearing the sapphire dress Logan had bought me for this exact moment, my hand resting in his under the expensive tablecloth. The Pierce family mansion was everything I'd imagined. Ornate, cold, impressive. His mother, Catherine, was telling a story about their furniture collection when I noticed the silence. The accountant had just walked in, whispering something urgent to Logan's father, Richard. Catherine stopped mid-sentence. Richard's face changed from pleased host to something darker. His hand trembled as he pulled out a leather ledger from beneath the table. The casual dinner energy shifted instantly to something heavy and wrong. Catherine stood up, her chair scraping loudly. "Where is this money, Logan?" Her voice shook with rage. She slammed the ledger open, pointing at a series of transactions. $500,000. Gone. The words felt like they were happening to someone else in another room in another life. Logan's name was listed on every single transaction. I froze, my hand still under the tablecloth. He slowly released my fingers. His face went pale. "It's a mistake," he whispered. "Just a mistake." But the way everyone turned to stare at us, the way his sister Marina flinched, the way his father's jaw clenched, I knew no mistake had been made. In that moment, suspended between the chandelier light and the mahogany table, everything I believed about Logan Pierce shattered into pieces I would spend months learning to recognize. The drive away from the mansion happened fast, Logan's hands gripping the steering wheel like he might strangle it. He didn't speak for the first 20 minutes, just drove through the dark streets of the city with a desperation that frightened me. When he finally pulled over into an empty parking garage, he turned to me with wild eyes. "You have to believe me," he said, his voice cracking. "It's all a misunderstanding. My mother is jealous of my success. She's always been jealous of what I'm trying to build." He took my hand, pressing it to his chest like I could feel his heart and know the truth. "Please, Arya. I need you to trust me." I wanted to believe him. The charming man I'd known for a year was suddenly vulnerable, desperate, and I felt the pull of wanting to save someone. But as he tried to explain where the money came from, his words became circular, contradictory, nonsensical. He blamed his mother. He blamed the accountants. He blamed a business deal that had gone wrong. With each explanation, the hole in his story grew wider. I stayed silent, watching him unravel, realizing that maybe I had never really known Logan Pierce at all. Maybe I'd known only the version of him he wanted me to see. That realization was the loneliest feeling in the world. I met Logan Pierce 1 year earlier at a corporate gala. My name is Arya Ward, and I was working as an interior designer at a mid-sized firm, making decent money but dreaming of something bigger. He approached me at the bar with that smile that would later become my greatest weakness. "You look like you're thinking about something important," he said, handing me a glass of champagne I hadn't asked for. I told him I was admiring the architecture of the ballroom, the way the light fixtures created depth, how the color palette influenced the mood. His eyes lit up like I'd said something profound. "That's the kind of thinking that builds empires," he said. "I'm Logan Pierce, by the way. My family owns Pierce Interiors. I'm launching my own branch, going independent, doing things differently." He said it with such confidence, such certainty about his future, that I believed him completely. He seemed like the dream man who didn't just tolerate my ambitions but celebrated them. He seemed like someone who could understand me. Our relationship moved at lightning speed. Within weeks, he was taking me to restaurants I'd only seen in magazines. He rented cars that cost more than my monthly salary. He bought me designer clothes and talked about our future like it was something guaranteed, already written in stone. "I want to spoil you," he would say, pulling out a black credit card before I could even look at the menu. "You deserve the best, and I'm going to give it to you." I remember my best friend, Natalie, warning me that something felt off. "Rich people don't usually spend money this carelessly," she said. It's like he's performing wealth instead of actually having it. But I dismissed her concerns, convinced she was just jealous or didn't understand how love worked. Looking back, I realized she was seeing the truth I was too infatuated to see. The first red flag was small enough that I could ignore it at the time. We were at a restaurant, and the waiter brought the wrong wine to our table. Logan's face changed so drastically that I barely recognized him. His jaw clenched, his eyes darkened, and he spoke to the waiter in a tone that made my stomach tight with discomfort. "Do I have to spell everything out for someone like you?" The rage lasted only a second before it disappeared behind his perfect smile, but that second changed something in me. It planted a seed of doubt I couldn't quite water or uproot. I asked him if he was okay, and he said he was just stressed about work. He kissed my forehead and apologized. The kindness that followed the anger confused me more than the anger itself had. One afternoon I went to his office unannounced, wanting to surprise him with lunch. The building was impressive on the outside but felt hollow inside. As I walked down the hallway toward his office, I heard raised voices. His sister's voice was the loudest. "The books don't balance, Logan. The books don't balance, and you know it." I froze outside the closed door, suddenly aware that I was listening to something I shouldn't hear. Logan noticed me through the frosted glass. His expression shifted from angry to smooth in the space of a heartbeat. He opened the door and immediately started talking about wedding plans, about venues and flowers, about a future that felt designed to distract me. His sister, Marina, looked at me with something in her eyes I didn't recognize. Pity, maybe. Or warning. He proposed during an elaborately orchestrated dinner at the city's most expensive restaurant. There were roses covering every surface, a rented string quartet playing in the corner, and a ring that probably cost more than my car. I said yes through tears, feeling like the luckiest woman alive. I had no idea that I was about to become entangled in a lie so complex that it would take months to unravel. For one perfect moment, I believed that I had found everything I wanted. A week later, his credit card was declined at a jewelry store where I wanted to buy a wedding band. He called it a bank error, speaking to his bank with an anger that seemed disproportionate to the situation. But he took care of it, or so I thought. I never questioned it further.